I say you're all very welcome, and I am absolutely delighted to have Martin Magill with us. He's currently the parish priest of St John's on the Falls. He is the co-founder of the Four Corners Festival, which encourages the building of new relationships across the four corners of the city. He's a member of Stop Attacks, a group dedicated to ending all paramilitary attacks. And he's the author of one book so far on the Poor Clares in Belfast. Over the past 3 years, because he doesn't have enough to do, as a hobby, he has been researching and collating details, including the origins of Belfast Street Names. And he has uncovered a wealth of information of about, I think, 2,000 street names, maybe more at this stage. It's changing daily. And he has been looking at the people and the historical events that have shaped the city that are reflected in the street names. So Martin's going to talk to us about that today and about some of his exciting discoveries. And in particular, today is a big day for the project when it's kind of, there's a bit of a gear change and the project has grown arms and legs. And one of the legs today is a brand new website, which is dedicated to Belfast Street Names, belfaststreetnames.com. And I'm delighted to be welcoming Martin to the stage in just a minute, along with Paul Tempin, who is the chair of the committee that has been formed to oversee the work of this project. And Paul has travelled, he's very connected into places. We've travelled to Ireland as a hill walker and as a tour guide. He has done doctoral research on Irish place names at Queen's University Belfast and worked as a researcher and later research fellow at the Northern Ireland Place Name Project. So he's bringing lots of expertise on place to the project as well. And he now works with Libraries NI and is an independent researcher. And he's going to be working alongside Martin on this project. And I'm now delighted to welcome them both to the stage to launch the website and tell you more about the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patsy, and thank you very much, Martin, for inviting me to launch this excellent website, belfaststreetnames.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's fantastic to see so many people here. I'd like to tell you briefly what is on the website to encourage you to use it and perhaps even to contribute to it. The website is the brainchild of Father Martin Magill, who created it with the assistance of web designers Aspect Media last year. A limited version has been available to the public so far, while a fuller version has been in development. Until very recently, Martin has been funding the development of the website himself, but since the formation of a committee last month, responsibility for running it has been taken over by the new organisation, Belfast Street Names. And we have a proper committee here, and we have Kay Muir, who's at the back, is on the committee, and also Bernard, who is willing to, Bernard is there, and he's willing to collect names and email addresses of anybody that's interested in joining our organisation at the end of the talk. The website has a search facility which allows you to look up any of the 4,187 street names, so Martin tells me, in the Belfast postal areas BT1 to BT15. At present, some of these have limited information, such as the date that they came into being, while for others there are full explanations of the origin of the street name, as well as some of the history of the street name. And the aim is ultimately to provide as much information as possible for each name. In some cases, there's information that's already available, and it's just a matter of entering the data. And in other cases, we need to do a little bit more research, which is what makes this topic so interesting. As well as the search page, there are several blogs by different contributors on various topics relating to street names. And it is hoped that new blogs will be added regularly. If any of you are teachers, maybe you could encourage your students to use it, and perhaps even to contribute to it as well, as it would be wonderful to get young people engaging with the history of their city. So, without further ado, I'm just going to let Martin come up.
Okay, I get the PowerPoint wording here.
I would like to declare the website belfaststreetnames.com officially open, launched, chocks away, and good luck to all who surf on her.
So first of all, can I say a word of thanks to Patsy Horton and the team here in Lindenball Library for the opportunity to give this talk here this afternoon. So from a Four Corners spirituality festival point of view, I'm outside my comfort zone, and that's the whole idea of the festival. It's very different. Catherine Larkin, who's the pastoral assistant here in St. John's, standing up in St. John's and preaching at people, to talking here for about 40 minutes or so. But that is all part of the development of this city. Paul, a word of thanks to you for officially launching the project here, and indeed to the other committee members who have been willing to serve on the board. I'm not going to go through a huge list of names because I really want to get into the core of this, but there are some people I do want to thank, mostly in group form, but I want to take a moment to say a word of thanks to one individual, and I hope you'll allow me to do that. And that's Nicole Hamilton, who's here in the room. I made contact with the School of History at Queen's University last year, and I'd heard about their intern programme, and I was asked to give some details about it, and it was put to students, that's master's students, and Nicole took up the offer and started research in Crony, working on Belfast Street Names. And she still is doing bits and pieces of things. I think the internship, strictly speaking, is well over at this stage, but she's still answering emails from me, so thank you for that. Thanks also to a variety of different people, officers and councillors in Belfast City Hall, Belfast City Council, for their ongoing support, for the various doors they've opened to me. And to the various archivists who get this random email from me asking, can you help me with such and such? I have to say, this is a new world for me, but I have to say it's been a wonderful community to meet people from, and the assistants also from Crony Central Library, and of course, Lindenball Library. One final group of people I want to mention. I used to call them tweeters, but now that Twitter has become X, I'm not entirely sure what to call them. Do I call them Xers or whatever? I had a really good experience on Twitter. I would regularly appeal for information about street names, and some people really go out of their way, and I hope I'm going to illustrate that as you see some of the results that come from Twitter. I'm very restricted in what I can do here this afternoon, and that's how this technology will be working for me. So I want to say, first of all, the importance of street names. This is from an article by shipyard poet Thomas Carnduff. Belfast Telegraph, 29th of July 1939. But I want to focus in on a phrase that he used during or in the course of this article, and I want to amend it. I'm not sure if Carnduff would be too impressed with what I'm going to do with this quotation, but here goes. So here it is. The history of Belfast is not only to be found in the printed book, but in the street names. He hadn't used the word not. I have come across so many wonderful books that I felt I'm taking a bit of a liberty to amend that quotation. Paul's already mentioned that it's over 4,000 street names, and that fits within the range BT1 to BT15. I've learned about suffixes. I had no idea what suffixes were, so those are the names that. So you might have a name, if I take, let's say, Fort William, it could be park, it could be drive, it could be close, whatever. That's the suffix. So there's, as I say, almost 4,200 of those. A couple of hopes that I have for this is that it might encourage other people in similar areas of research. So for example, I'm often asked about patterns, and I have to say Paul Temple is the person to talk to on that. I'm going to give his recent publication in Familia, the Ulster Genealogical Review. I mentioned he has written an article on patterns in street names of Belfast. I'm also hoping that this website will be useful, or the work will be useful to people who want to chart Belfast over the years. And go back to Karen Duff, I think in some ways you can easily see how it does that over the years by the choice of names. The research I've been doing has mostly been in Crowley, and I've already mentioned Nicole and her research there as well. In the early stages of what was called the Town Improvement Committee, then in more recent times, pre-2015, Health and Environmental Services, and from 2015, it goes to the People and Communities Committee. So talking about the importance of street names, and I suppose that's one of my hopes for this afternoon, I want to mention a series that Belfast Telegraph is running at the minute. I'm a visual thinker. I like visual aids, so I'm just going to hold up the latest edition of the Saturday magazine of the Belfast Telegraph. It's a wonderful series. Delighted to say that the author of the series is in the back of the room. There it is, Jason Burke. And I'm going to throw it out there. I do hope to encourage Jason to think seriously of turning this into a book. If you've been following the series, it's a wonderful series and well worth following. And well done, Belfast Telegraph, for doing that. So. Now, the presentation I'm hoping to do in the course of this 40 minutes or so, 5 different things. Share some examples of what I've discovered thanks to other people from Twitter. Got a lovely phrase this morning from another context of I see this as a collaborative jigsaw. So in terms of I'm doing this because I'm hoping that within the room this might encourage other people to share this information so that it's available for the whole of the city. I'm going to say a little bit about some of the interesting things I've discovered from the Belfast City Council website, particularly from 2015 onwards. And this might come as a surprise to some people here, and I'm going to be really positive about the experience of the people in committee, what I've discovered. And then I'm going to tell you about a man called Richard Atkinson. This has been a real breakthrough for me here. Then sharing a little bit about some of my detective work, as I call it, and I will say something about Susan Street. And then finally, I want to leave some homework. So that's what I'm trying to do now in the next 40 minutes or so. So I'm going to start with Twitter. And I'm going to do it following the 4 corners of Belfast. So I'm going to start in the north. Had a recent conversation about Gray's Lane. And that was sparked by tour guide Mark Doherty. I'm sure he's got probably other titles as well, etc. And so I put out an appeal on Twitter, and afterwards, a number of people pointed me to this website, Timothy Ferris's website, Lord Belmont in Northern Ireland. If you don't know it, it is absolutely packed with information of historical interest. Now, I will say a warning. I'm not responsible if you go there and you lose 4 or 5 hours because it's utterly fascinating. So this points me towards Greymount House, which was built for William Gray around 1835 by architect Thomas Jackson, one of the earliest buildings he designed. Jackson, a prominent linen merchant, director of the Ulster Railway Company, and he'd originally leased land from Lord Donegal. I thought I would go a little bit further with the research and find the earliest reference I could to Gray's Lane in Greencastle. So if you're from Grayslane, I need to offer a profound apology for what's going on here on the screen. The first reference I could find to it, which was in the 16th of May, 1889 in the Belfast Telegraph. Manure for sale, about 100 tons, a mixture of horse and cow. Sadly, that's the first reference I could find to Grayslane and Newcastle. I'm going to move swiftly on. Staying in North Belfast, a Rosa parade. I just want to give you some idea of how it works in Twitter. It certainly has for me. So a Rosa parade, it's off York Road, and I made an appeal for it. I was doing some research on it, and one of the people who regularly responds is Edward Burke. Edward's an assistant professor in UCD, and he pointed me towards, those who were interested in it as well, certainly pointed me towards this place in the west coast of Spain, and especially of interest to the Royal Navy. And they went on to suggest a familiarity to Port City like Belfast. I'm showing that for a particular reason, because that then triggered another Twitter response from John O'Neill. John's an archaeologist living in Wexford. And John, again, is another of these people who have been really helpful on Twitter. He seems to be a natural researcher. And he was then, as you should see there, he's put up this advert for cruises from Belfast, stopping off in Rosa Bay. And he then messaged me to say, and I'm going to quote the message, "I had a look at the street directory, and the Rosa Parade appears as newly built in newspapers from early 1931, and the name first appears that year. I wondered if it had been a house name before then, but it's not in the street directory if it was. Edward's idea about a Rosa Bay made me think of the cruises." So in other words, in Twitter, what happens is somebody adds something in that might spark something for someone else, and really in some ways it's a bit like a detective. It's a bit like the police would often say, every little bit of information helps. South Belfast, Cameron Street, had no idea where it got its name. And a woman called Meg Ardis pointed me towards this website, Shaftesbury Square Reformed Presbyterian Church. And I have to say this has been the best experience so far of churches and websites, because they had a section on it called Under Heritage. And under Heritage, they had a section called Street Names. And here's what I found when I went to the website. Some of the streets near the church have names connected to the Reformation in Scotland in the 16th and 17th centuries. 3 examples are within a 5-minute walk of the church. And then it mentions Cameron Street off Botanic Avenue, Renwick Street off Sandy Row, and Cargill Street, which is off Townsend Street in West Belfast. Now, Shaftesbury Square Reformed Church, Dublin Road, Cargill Street, well, Townsend Street, there must be some car walkers. They could get there in 5 minutes. And then a bit about Richard Cameron, gives a little bit of detail of his background, and they also provide a very helpful map of Cameron Street. So great examples of this particular church. East. Now, hemp. Hemps might have other connotations for people, and because it has, and because I didn't want to sort of disappear down some other completely different road, I put in a bit of extra detail in the tweet that I put out. So I mentioned also that it was named in 1887 along with Hunt Street, Hine Street, Park Street, and this is all off the Newton Arch Road. Paul mentioned the committee, and one of the committee members, who's recently joined, Lisa Ray Curry, very promptly responded and was able to point me, of course, for those in the East who will know this well, to the roadworks across the street, which made rope from hemp. And her reply got me interested in thinking about rope making. And again, the road works, and it goes back to Conduct's point about the history of the city written in street names. Now, I will have to say, and again, I will say this, another warning, that this sort of area opens up so much. I could very easily have become distracted finding out about all sorts of road works on this wonderful site that I put up behind me here. Bryson Street, still in the east of the city. Again, I just put out the view for that. It's a street I would have heard regularly over the years. And this time, Linda Irvine, known to many of us from the tourist project which encourages the use of the Irish language, encourages people to learn Irish. And that's for people who normally, maybe in the past, wouldn't have had that opportunity or wouldn't have thought about it. And Linda came up with the answer here, which you can see is Samuel Bryson, one of a long line of Presbyterians who saved a lot of important documents in Irish, and he was a member of the Ulster Gaelic Society, which was formed in 1830. I started researching Bryson and finding, oh, that's really interesting, but thinking, no, that could distract me completely, and I think that's probably one of the things about this research. There's so many fascinating things. Next one was McDonald Street, and it's in the west of the city, Lower Falls. And one of the things that I find from experience, so if you find that you're a tweeter and I regularly am including you in tweets, John, you were there, John Butcher, you were there a few moments ago, you're around there somewhere, there you are at the back. John's really good at retweeting. A number of the politicians are really good. I'm making no political comment, I'm just simply observing. I have to say, Paul Maskey is incredibly good at doing that as well. Claire Hanno occasionally, and the odd one from John Finucane, and a number of other politicians as well. Gary McEwen, who's one of the city councillors again, very, very supportive. John O'Neill came back very soon afterwards with the answer. Again, this is all on Twitter. Proposed by Francis MacDonald. Give me details from his research, pawnbroker with an office in Church Street, and then the city to name the street after himself, and that was in November 1866. But he then went on, and this was fascinating below this, and again, I'm going to make no political comment on this is just the information shared here. The Fenian movement. Belfast, Tuesday night. This is from Belfast Weekly News, 1866. See here? Just bear that in mind. The police have seized a large number of arms at Belfast. I'm just going to skip through bits of it. Swords, daggers, and other weapons in the house of Francis MacDonald, pawnbroker. Some of the arms are new, and then I love the next line. The names of the parties who pawned them will probably be useful to the police. All that from Twitter to say enormous help from social media, and it's been a real godsend for this particular project. Now, because of the size of it, I need to ask for as much help as possible, hence the regular appeals here. And so, go back to the early minutes. Belfast City Council or Belfast Corporation, as it was in those days when I first started to look at them. And so some of the early books into the 1860s, a real challenge if you've looked at any of the writing there. It's a real challenge to read some of the writing. Almost need to do a course in deciphering some of that. But there, yes, you can find when the street was dated. You can normally find who requested it. And here comes my sadness. But it stops at that point. I so wanted them to give a little bit more about, well, why did you ask for that? Someone was asking me earlier about Logan Street in west of the city. You know, that information, sadly, is not there, but we have to become to 2050 onwards now, and the people in communities, so the story ends well. So, and just as I mentioned that this is the particular site within Belfast City Council I want to mention, and in particular this search facility. And thank you, Gary, for pointing me to this. That's Gary Nicole, Councillor Gary Nicole. And to be able to put in there street name, or I would use the word naming, or various forms like that, and then it brings up lots and lots, at times lots and lots of examples. So it does require a bit of patience to go through all this. I want to share with you just the examples of 4 different streets. First one, Hamilton Road, which is in the Titanic Quarter. And in some ways, I'm probably really holding these up as what a great way to do this sort of work. In this particular case, put forward by the Titanic Quarter Limited. This was a private road, but they're also developing a new road in the Titanic Quarter as well. And what I suppose I really liked about it was a very detailed piece of work. They gave all sorts of reasons for it. They produced maps, including a piece from some from a Harlan Wolf map, further evidence from the Shipbuilders to the World, another book, and they argued in favour that it should be called Hamilton Road. To say that's a map of that they produced, they sent to the City Hall, they sent to the People and Communities Committee, arguing for this. And then the reason why they thought it should be called Hamilton Road, and that is it's off Queen's Road in the Titanic Quarter. James Hamilton was the chairman of Belfast Harbour Commissioners from 1869 to 1875, and his name has been historically associated with the area. And then it goes on, Hamilton Dock now features the SS Nomadic, and then so at the time of writing it said the new Hamilton Dock Hotel is due to commence construction in 2022. And I can confirm, because I checked with one of the architects working on it, it's under construction. And then not only did they do all that, provide all that information, they then put forward a second and third choice. So whoever came up with this idea, this is absolutely wonderful, and such a contrast to the early days when it's a bit of a guessing game, whereas here it's a very different matter. So well done, Titanic Quarter, and well done, Belfast City Council and People and Communities. Next one. Okay, so I'm conscious it hasn't been very interactive so far. Anybody know that name? Anybody know where it is? Anybody even know a part of the city? Okay, so I'm trying to make a point here. So for example, unless this is written down somewhere, how would we know? And that would be my concern about some of those early ones, that we may not actually be able to really figure out why they were called. Galgany Crescent, North Belfast, Old Park Road. Off the Old Park Road is Ardley Avenue. Off Ardley Avenue is Galgany Crescent. Where does it come from? Well, go to the minutes of the People and Communities Committee in 2020, December 2020, and you read the following. The Boyd Partnership, as the architects, has proposed Galgany Crescent for a new street that's being developed on the former site, there's a key piece of information, of St Gemma's School in the Ardoyne area of Belfast. It's being proposed as Galgany was the surname of St Gemma, and then put in a second choice and a third choice. So you've heard of St Gemma's School. She was St Gemma Galgany, born in Italy in 1878, died in 1903. Now I just had to do a little bit more research. She was buried in a Passionist monastery in Luga. And that's a key piece of information as well, because the parish, that school, St Gemma's, would have been shared with responsibility with St Clair Parish and with Holy Cross Parish. And of course, those who know will realise that Holy Cross Parish is the Passionist order. So they would have had the influence on the school being named when it was opened in 1967, Galgany Crescent. My point is, unless this information is written down, how will we ever know? I mean, that would be a lot of guesswork. Now, maybe you might, but it would be a big effort. Next one, global present, and this is off Miller Street, off Ravenhill Avenue. I was going to say originally east, but I think strictly speaking, it's actually in the south. It falls within South Belfast constituency. And again, great detail here, coming from the Fold Housing Association. That was their first preference for new social housing site. And then the minutes go on with really interesting information. OFM, DFM, for those who don't like TLA, or don't like these acronyms, I'm going to say the Office of the First Minister and Deputy First Minister. So one of their schemes was trying to encourage shared housing. This fit within this, and it's towards building a united community. And the ethos was to encourage this shared neighbourhood. So what the Fold Housing Association did is they approached 2 primary schools, more of that later. And the 2 schools were St Michael's on the Ravenhill Road, and the other was Euston Street Primary School. And they asked the children for suggestions. Now, they'd given the children some idea of the background and what it was about. So I think these were around about primary 6s, primary 7s, and they came up with this idea of global present. And it's again that sense of people living together. Now, what I liked about Fold Association as well, they offered a third choice, and it was nice. Now, one that took me a moment or two to understand, but I think it really makes a lot of sense. They offered Pearl Dye News, and the reason for that was the site was formerly known as the Devonshire Laundry. Up to those in West Belfast will be aware there already is a Devonish there, so rather than any confusion, they suggested putting forward the name of the street after the company was called Pearl Dye, and that was their third suggestion. But as it happens, it wasn't required because global present is now in existence, and that was in 2015. I want to go on to this one. And this one's very special, and I'm going to keep it at the end. This is Black Ridge Gardens, and again, great detail from the minutes of the People and Communities Committee. Off the Mola Bypass, Apex Housing Association, and just this is part of the Glenmona site. So those of us in the west of the city will be familiar with Glenmona. So that site, and it's been developed for over 650 social and affordable homes. So I'm just going to mention a couple of the streets, and there's considerably more than I'm going to mention. Black Ridge Gardens, Black Ridge Way, Black Ridge Heights, and it gives a bit more detail, are derived from Divis, or from Irish Duvish, D-U-B-H-A-I-S, meaning Black Ridge. And then a bit more detail, the Divis Mountain is situated north of the development, and then it also gave second and third variations. So again, which I've really liked, Apex had a lot of community engagement, local councillors, community groups, Upper Springfield Development Trust, and again another primary school, this time St Teresa's on the Gang Road. The historian Tom Hartley was brought in to talk to the children a little bit about the history of the area and made some suggestions, and the children came up with the idea of calling it Black Ridge, and that's the photograph of the housing development. I say there's something very special about this one, and that is the official launch was today at 12 noon. So if you're watching your TV tonight, you will very possibly see the launch of Black Ridge on all the different streets in that area. So moving to the next one, the name Richard Atkinson may not be very familiar to some people from Atkinson Homes. So, a little bit of the background. So doing all this research over the last number of years, In this particular case, go back to the Health and Environmental Services minutes. Those were pre-2015. One of the names, and I suppose that's what I found again and again, just going over the period's history, there are different names that occur again and again. And one of the names was the Cargo Group. And this was a group of developers, builders, and they regularly put forward names. The company went into administration in 2011 and was dissolved in 2019. However, I was able to contact one of the Cargo family, and to his credit, he said the person you need to talk to is Richard Atkinson. And he suggested looking at Richard's website. So it's another of these out of the blue emails that people get from me. And this time I emailed Richard, who very kindly said, "Oh, this stuff sounds very interesting, let's meet for coffee." And I suppose one of the things that I've loved about this is that we kept in contact. I even got an invitation to dinner in his house there just a couple of months ago, and I was talking to him recently, I think last week, and another invitation as well. So it's been really lovely to get to know him. Why is it so important? Well, so for the Cargo Group, Richard Atkinson had the responsibility of coming up with the names for the various developments that they put forward. So it was up to him to do some of the research about the geography, about the history, and then to suggest names that would fit in with this. So in some ways, when I'm having a conversation with him, I'm getting an insight into at least one person who comes up with some of these street names, which of course obviously in the past was impossible. So I would have asked him from time to time some of the places that I'd come across. So the first one. So this is Ben Eden. This is north of the city of Downview Drive, and it was proposed by the Cargo Group into the year 2000, and were accepted at the Health and Environmental Services Committee. So he's able to tell me it was called after a large house called, of course, Ben Eden House. And this is a regular enough occurrence right throughout Belfast that streets will be called after big houses. And here I want to mention Paul Temple's blog on the website, which mentions big houses, and we'll see that happening again and again. So Ben Eden House, a little bit of the background to that. It was built in 1849 for a linen merchant, Valentine Whitlock, in a style similar to that of Lanyon. And it remained a private house until 1951, and then it was a significant development. It was bought over by a religious order known as the Redemptorists, and they turned it into a retreat centre. So I know some people here will be very familiar with St. Clement's Retreat House and Centre. That's where Ben Eden House was. Ben Eden House was demolished in 1960. So Richard got the name for a number of different streets in the area there. You can possibly just see a few of those. Ben Eden Court, Green Park, there are a few others, all in the Downview area. Next one is Heath Lodge Avenue. This is, again, a number of them, the Mews, Square, Avenue, etc. So this is off Ballymagarry Lane, and this is over just off Ballygowan Road. I know there's at least one person who knows Ballygowan Road very well here. Go back to 2003. Richard, where'd you get the idea from? So he told me, come back to an old map. Now, he couldn't actually locate it on an old map. I'm sure it's there somewhere, because his memory's incredibly good. But what I did find, and I just sort of shared it as well, is that a marriage notice about a marriage taking place at Heath Lodge itself, and that was in October 1877. So the marriage actually took place in the house in Heath Lodge, and Heath Lodge is on one of the old maps, and a number of the streets just off Ballygowan Road called Heath Lodge. Just two more from Richard again, and I had the opportunity to ask him when I came across these. Again, back to Ravenhill, this time Ravenhill Avenue again. Ardneley Green, but there's also the Close, the Rise, the Court, and they were approved by the committee in 1997. So this time, WhatsApp communication, and here's what Richard said about the choice of name. In relation to Ardneley, Carville's built approximately 400 homes on the site of Belfast Cooperative Wholesale Society land, and it stretched from Ravenhill Road to Miller Street and Ravenhill Avenue. The main entrance to the development was past the funeral home on Ravenhill Road. I selected, this is Richard speaking, I selected Ardneley Green as the name of the development, which then had derivatives, in other words, similar, the likes of the suffixes, plus other names. And he adds this in as well, and you can check it on the map, Old Baker's Court. So it's probably there, Ardneley Green. So I'm just slightly off for a second or two. Oh. I think I've got my backwards. Oh, I've already skipped to the homework. Right. I think I'm so eager to get to the homework. I think I pressed the wrong button here. Right. So I'm going to list through this again and try to get to the stage there. Technology is great when it works. And back to a little bit of revision there. You thought, Jonathan, Ardneley Green, this is where I am. And so Baker's, Old Baker's Court as well, because there was a bakery there. And the name Ardneley was selected by myself purely because of the upmarket image portrayed by Ardneley Avenue, which was already in existence. And he describes that image of Ardneley Avenue as large, upmarket, Victorian detached and semi-detached houses. Did a little bit more research. There was an advert in the Northern Whig in 1885 for Ardneley House. So again, I'm going to suggest it's Ardneley Avenue, gets its name from Ardneley House. I'm conscious there's a number of experts in Parish in the room here, some place name folks, etc. So I suspect there's probably Parish connections, if digging in deeper to that as well. Then the final one from Richard is Oakley Park. This is off the Ravenhill Road, back to the year 2000. And again, I asked him, why did you call it that? And his answer, Oakley was a large detached house just off the Ravenhill Road, just down from Co-op Funeral Home, and I think would be within the current boundary of Ormeau Park. So if you actually look very carefully there, you will actually see that just on the left-hand side, the drinking fountain. So Oakley House in there. And I remember seeing it on an old map, a map like this from the Ordnance Survey, and thought it'd be a pleasant name for a phase of approximately 24 to 26 houses on land adjacent to Ardneley. Oakley was built on a site of approximately 1.8 acres and on the former depot of Lake Patrick Dairies. And the map showing Oakley House would probably be mid-1800s. So Oakley House. So very grateful to Richard for his willingness to share some of that information, and he's been really helpful. So moving on now to some of the street names that have required a little bit more detail. Susan Street is one of them in East Belfast. I'm going to make it just a very general point, and I brought along another little visual aid. We recently had the marking of the unveiling of the two statues in Belfast City Hall, and I very kindly, I was very graced and very grateful to the invitation I got to that event. So one of the lines of that was City Hall, in terms of looking at the whole gender of representation. Very definitely male, very definitely rich, and any females there are a royal family. So some of the comments about the two statues of Marianne McCracken and Winifred Carney some of the comments about gender and wealth status. If you take a look at Belfast Street Names, you'll struggle to find many female names who are not from a royal family or very well off. Just something making this observation. So Susan Street, Lower Newton Orange Road, lots of appeals to that on Twitter, not really getting anywhere. The usual sort of theory was must be some connection with McMaster Street. Okay, press the right button this way. So Susan Street's just off there, so you can actually see it there, just in the red dot on Susan Street, and then you have Tower Street beside it, and then Westbourne Church. So just a little bit further along, you have this McMaster Street and Lendrick Street, and I suppose some people often thought it must have something to do with the McMasters, but I'm aware, for example, I know one person has told me that he'd actually put it in print, and a member of the family at McMasters contacted from England to say, no Susan, there's no Susan in the family. So working away with that in Prony, and then I came across from the minutes in September 1886, which said this: Messrs. Frasers and Son, on behalf of Mrs. Henderson, for 2 new streets off Newton Orange Road, be named Susan Street and Trevor Street. Now, Trevor Street, a couple of years later, was changed to Tower Street, which you see in the maps at the moment. And I'm going to mention also something else as well, Westbourne Presbyterian Church. So back to this again, small pieces of information can really make a difference. That small piece of information, this is Henderson, and then connecting it with the names, Trevor as well. So that led me to discover the Henderson genealogy had been put online. And when I searched that, Mrs. Henderson, turned out to be Agnes Henderson, was married to James Henderson, the proprietor of the Belfast newsletter, obviously very wealthy, mayor of the city in 1873 and 1874. So one of their children was called Trevor, who was Sir Trevor of Norwood Tower. Another son was called Charles Westbourne, as in Westbourne Church, Westbourne Presbyterian Church. And another son married a woman called Susan Goodwood. So I'm concluding at this particular stage that the Susan is after Susan Goodwood, who would be the daughter-in-law of that Mrs. Henderson. Now, because of the importance of cross-referencing, accuracy, etc., I like to try and check out this as much as I can. And here I want to sing the praises of one Valerie Adams of the Presbyterian Historical Society. I'm always very careful when I'm saying that word that doesn't sound like Historical Society. And in her reply to me, this is what she wrote. After some research, found that James Alexander Henderson, who married Agnes Mackay in 1845 in Fisherwick Presbyterian Church, and then died in 1883, was proprietor, this is James Henderson, proprietor of the newsletter and one of the original founders of Belmont Presbyterian Church. The Hendersons were not only a wealthy family, but also very much Presbyterian. James Alexander had a big family. One of his sons was Charles Westbourne, who was born in England, and in brackets she puts, maybe the name Westbourne comes from the name of the parish in Sussex, where he may have been born, and other sons were Sir James and Henry Trevor, that name again, and a little bit more of that. And then she mentions that Trevor and Charles Westbourne mentioned him as well. And that convinces me that there's enough information to say Susan Street is called like Susan Goodwood or Susan Henderson. Again, that sort of warning about some of the, when you do this sort of thing, you can get very easily, at least I could get very easily distracted. And one of the distractions was when I found out a little bit more about Westbourne, I discovered this little piece of information. On 16th of May, 1785, James Biden married Anne Silverlock at Westbourne, both parishioners, and the great-great-great-grandparents of 46th US President Joe Biden. Who would have known? The next one, Miller Street, Well, I set off in the wrong direction, thinking of bakeries, but that didn't go anywhere, a dead end. I'm sure those who are involved in researching what that's like. And then I discovered a wonderful section on the Henderson Group website. So Henderson, who's the retail company, gave this information and for Miller Street. Andrew Miller was a very old established jam making business in 1873. Miller Jam had been a market-leading product in the province. Mass-produced jam post-war from the big companies meant that it was difficult to compete with the national companies, and the jam production was ended after 2 or 3 years. And there you go back to 1924 and Miller Street, and the only address on it is Miller J and Co. Ravenhill Reserve Works. Now, this one is right beside where I'm living. It's right beside St. John's Church on the Falls Road. And I often wonder, why is it called Hugo Street? And I asked various people, and none of the parishioners seemed to know. And then I got into a conversation with a businessman who originally was in the city, and he told me, well, he said, I think that's coming from the son of a Belfast solicitor. And lo and behold, I found out a bit more research and discovered that yes, there was a Frank Kerr who was a well-known solicitor, owned a bit of property as well. And in the minutes in February 1898 was the following: resolved that on application of Mr. Frank Kerr, a new street on his property situate off Falls Road be named Hugo Street. And then a little bit more information to discover that he had a newborn son called Hugo, and who then later became a Redemptorist priest. And Father Hugo Kerr, in his, when I looked at his obituary, it was actually, I was able to read that he was born on the 7th of September 1895. The street was named in 1898. Hugo Street, just off the Falls Road. And then finally, one that took a little bit of effort as well, with a few questions, and I've got to say, Clonmel Housing Association, very helpful. This is Shanvis Court. It's between the Shankill and the Falls on Percy Street. And this one, again, another competition built in 2006. And the press release that the Housing Association put out was this: Chantel Gilroy, a West Belfast schoolgirl, has been given the opportunity to put her mark firmly on the future by winning a competition to name a new street. Shanvis Court is the winning name for Clonmel's new homes at Percy Street, and is a mixture of two names from either side of the peace line, Shankill and Divis. And by bringing the two names together, she hoped people from both communities could live in harmony. And to that I say, Amen. And that is called a portmanteau name, this idea of bringing the two names together. Now, as I'm fast approaching the 2 o'clock mark here, sorry, perhaps I've gone a bit over here. A few useful resources I'm going to mention. One of the people who has written extensively over the years is a man called John Marshall. This is a photograph of John. He's on the he's on your right-hand side there, receiving his honorary MA in 1931. And in particular, he had written regular articles for the Belfast Telegraph. Sadly, nobody actually got them properly published, but instead they brought together the articles, and Belfast Over Library, the Heritage section, has a sort of a copy of this, a bound copy of that. This is a photocopy of that, and again, I'm grateful to the records manager in Belfast City Council for a copy for this photocopy as well. Absolutely fascinating. So if you're going to do some research on this, John J. Marshall, well worth exploring. Another piece, resource that I highly recommend is this one, called the Northern Ireland Place Names Project. And I'm delighted that there's a number of people who are actually in the room. This is an absolutely fabulous project. And way back in 2006, 2007, A number of people were involved in road names or street names in Belfast. So the likes of Dr. Ken Moore, Dr. Catherine McKay, along with Kieran Dunbar and Dr. Paul Temple. So well done on that, but well done on the overall project as well. I'm very grateful. Dr. Francis Kane, who's here, regularly gets emails from me asking yet more questions. And I'm also going to mention one other person as well, Tommy Hughes, because I want to refer to the most recent blog on that website as another great way. I'm not going to go into it now, I don't have time. It's a fascinating piece. This is back to North Belfast again. Grace Hill Court. It's just off the old Park Road. I would be very friendly with the minister of the Cliftonville Moravian Church. So this made it so interesting for me. I'm not going to go into all this. Tommy's final point at the end of that excellent blog raises the question, as you can see, it's obviously in Irish and English here, and the whole question of translation. And some of the challenges of translation into Irish, and I quote Tommy, is the risk of this approach is that historical context of the street name may be obscured, and the most satisfactory approach to this street name is to provide a direct translation of Grace Hill Court. Therefore, we'll go with this: Birch, Crick, and Hrasta, rather than trying to sort of go back into the historical piece, which is focusing on townland. Another one, this might surprise you, is one of our former ministers, Nelson McCausland. Now, I will offer a wee health warning. Some of the politics is a little bit on the, it wouldn't be quite my taste for some of the politics. However, I have to say, some really fascinating pieces on Nelson's blog. So I just sort of whiz through that, because I'm so keen to get to this homework. And the homework. So here's the homework. The homework basically this. I'm just going to finish with a few examples of some where I really don't know for sure what they are, and there's quite a lot more, but I'm half hoping in some ways that you might be interested in doing a bit of research in this one. Glen Road again, Airfield Heights. I'll save you a lot of effort. It's coming from the Caffreys. Thomas Caffrey, who eventually came to own the brewery and run it, etc. He built Airfield House. My question is, why was it called Airfield House? So please don't get caught up with close to Aldergrove Airport or anything like that. You're way in the wrong track. Closest I've come to at the minute is he moved from Dublin. Could it have been after an estate in Dublin? That question. One that might seem super, super obvious, and that's Union Street. That street between North Street and Donegal Street. Again, people think, oh, as soon as you hear Union, think, oh, I know what that's called after. Oh, no, you don't. And if you're not sure about that, have a look, have a read at George Ben and his History of Belfast, and also the Irish Historical Town Atlas. Rosemary Street. So you pay your money, you take your chance on this one. Rosemary Street. Some people, oh, it's because of the amount of rosemary planted there to take away from the smells of the nearby tanneries, mills, etc. The late historian Jonathan Barden argues that in fact it's from the name of one of the Donegal family. Finchley Park, another really challenging one as well. Finchley Park, now again, you could go off in the wrong direction with this one. So if you're thinking, oh, I know that one, Margaret Thatcher, you're wrong. So this is way back, it was 1964. Off Donegal Road, Bet Street. Again, this is one that I put out there as well. Or Bate Street. Could it be after the industrialist and philanthropist Alfred Bate? Not sure about that one either. And I thought I'd better go for this one too, as I mentioned on radio there this morning. Oops. Anyway, this one is the famous Sagamore Gardens. So if you're very attached to this idea, this is a council worker who misspelt the name Sycamore. I really don't think so. And Paul's latest theory on it is possibly something from Last of the Pagans or a Belfast built ship of the same name. So that's the homework. One final piece to end on this is, this one made me smile. In 1953, a man called Mr. A.P. Ready wrote to the Lord Mayor asking that he come up with this great idea, asking serious consideration be given to his suggestion that York Street be renamed New York Street. The council declined.
Thank you so much, Martin. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of streets there. Belfast past, present, and the Belfast that might have been if some of those streets had happened. Room for maybe just 2 questions because we're short of time. Okay, there's one hand up straight away.
Just a quick one. All of the examples you gave were of currently existing streets. Does the site cover, Hercules Street, streets and advantage?
Yes, so on that one, yes and no. No, in the sense that I've taken the decision that it's only existing sites that I'm going to focus on, but it's obviously yes, because I'm talking about Royal Avenue, which would involve Hercules Street at one particular stage, but certainly when there's gone into so many streets at this stage that no longer exist. For example, yesterday was a specific discovered street called Nursery Street and another called Wardrobe Street. I mean, my goodness, I would have no time for anything else if I were to follow one of those. So I think it's a strict rule that they have to be in existence.
Anybody else? Time for one more question. Is there somebody there?
Do you know anything about Lilliput Street or the Skaggan Road?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I would definitely recommend you to go to the website, BelfastStreetNames.com. Famous educationalist in this particular city, actually, he lived there as well. So it's also the influence of Gulliver's Travel and Dean Swift. So yes, I mean that's if you'll actually go to the website, you'll see more detail on that. You'll see. I think I've got the detail of when it actually goes named on the website. But yes, it's there.
I'm conscious that we're after due coming up for 2:10, so I am just going to finish by saying just forgot to say at the very beginning that this event is part of the Magill Festival of Politics and Ideas, and it's terrific to be associated with them. They've got a brilliant programme. Check them out. That's running until the 24th of March, and that towards the Belfast Festival of History on Saturday is part of that programme for Imagine. And I just want to thank Martin for a terrific presentation on BelfastStreetNames.com and the work that he's doing, and we must all go off and look at our own streets now, as well as that homework. I'm giving you extra homework. Look at your own street and then send all the information to Martin. Thank you very much, Martin. Brilliant.